There, and we've been joined from Brussels by the UKIP MEP, Marta Andreasen. Marta Andreasen, what kind of relationship in your mind would a UK outside the EU have?
Well, I think that the UK should leave. I don't think it should follow the example of the Norwegian example or the Swiss example, because the UK will be in this unique position that has belonged to the EU for a long time and now has to really restructure its trading, restructure its regulations. And, you know, all this talk about the car industry moving away, I think it is nonsense. I think that the UK has now to develop other markets, other relationships with different markets. The EU economy is shrinking, so I think the UK should start right now to develop these new relationships, because you know, we are selling less and less to the EU members.
Right, but can
I think that...
Hold on, I need to ask you another question and get back to what I originally asked you. I mean, if the UK is outside of the EU, with therefore none of the obligations or costs that EU membership imposes on us, why would the Europeans give us access to the massive free market, to the massive open market of the European Union, without exacting a considerable price?
Well, listen, the first day that we left the European Union, the UK would pay 43 million less to the European Union. So this is the first benefit we would have.
That's the gross figure.
Now, if the UK decided to leave, I think this would bring the whole of the European Union to rethink the whole structure. The UK is in a perfect position today, very strong position to negotiate its demands. And Cameron today should be doing this, because the European Union needs the UK more than the UK needs the European Union. I can assure you this. That's why Angela Merkel went to Downing Street last week.
Well, she went to Downing Street because it was a scheduled trip. Tim Lautner, where are you on this?
No, she went to Downing Street because she wanted...
So I'm just asking, I do beg your pardon, just asking our guest here. Is leaving the EU now on the agenda?
Ultimately, possibly, yes. I'm a member of the Fresh Start group of Conservative MPs, where we're putting forward a very comprehensive agenda of real changes to the power base within Brussels across a whole range of areas, very detailed, practical proposals that are doable. This is what we want this government to be negotiating with Europe to get a better deal for Britain to stay within the EU. That's the most ideal position. But I believe that can only happen if it's backed up with a very real threat that if we don't get anything like that better deal, then we need to have an in-out referendum and put it to the people.
And you would recommend voting out?
Well, I don't know. If we were to have a referendum today on the current basis of our relationship with the EU, the amount we pay, the restrictions we get back in return, I think I would now vote out. And the British public is saying that on balance they would vote out. But if you poll the British public as to say, would you stay in if we had a much better deal with more powers decided back here, as people thought they were voting for back in 1975, most people on balance would want to stay in. I don't believe we're going to get that better relationship unless there is a real and clear threat of a referendum that would happen in the lifetime of the next Parliament.
All right. Does Labour have a position on repatriation of powers? Are there any powers you would want to repatriate back to London?
Well, it remains to be seen whether this government will argue for repatriation of powers. As I understand it, the Liberal Democrats don't want a repatriation of powers.
But we know the Conservatives do. Whether they can is another matter.
Well,
what I did ask you, though, was not about the Conservative policy. I asked you what Labour policy is.
Sure. We think, and I think strongly, that we should prioritise reform of the European Union to make sure that the budget is spent better, to make sure that there is a proper single market in services, that there is a common energy policy. Well, we wait to see what the Conservatives come up with. We've got to have a real...
No, you don't have to wait. You don't have to wait to answer my question. In principle, would Labour like to see some powers from Brussels repatriated to London?
In principle, I think the priority should be arguing for reform. I don't think
so is that a yes
it's very.
Or no?
I don't think it's very
is there
realistic.
A yes or a no?
I don't think it's realistic
And a year ago in this studio, Ed Miliband said, "I don't think Brussels has too much power." He clearly stated that to you. What's the position now? I think Brussels does have too much power. We've got to do something about it.
Marta Andreasen, I'll give you the final word on this.
Well, I think that before talking about repatriation of powers, Cameron should say that we are leaving the European Union. I think this would put him in the best position to have a different type of relationship. I repeat to what I said to you. I think the EU is very worried about the UK leaving, and we are in a very good position to negotiate. First, we have to say that we are leaving.
Right. I think I got that bit. Thanks for joining us from Brussels, and thanks to our London guests as well.